"Doesn't like his mother," said the old lady, as if that were an answer. "I never said he did, and she adores him." "Oh, your mother's adorations!" "Don't abuse her now," the girl rejoined after a pause. The old lady forbore to abuse her, but she made up for it the next moment by saying, "It will be dreadful for Edith." "What will be dreadful?" "Your desertion of her." "The desertion's on her side." "Her consideration for her father does her honor." "Of course, I'm a brute. N'en parlons plus," said the girl. "We must go our respective ways," she added, in a tone of extreme wisdom and philosophy. Her grandmother straightened out her knitting and began to roll it up. "Be so good as to ring for my maid," she said after a minute. The young lady rang, and there was another wait and another conscious hush. Before the maid came, her mistress remarked, "Of course, then, you'll not come to me, you know." "What do you mean by coming to you?" "I can't receive you on that footing." "She'll not come with me, if you mean that." "I don't mean that," said the old lady, getting up as her maid came in. This attendant took her work from her, gave her an arm and helped her out of the room, while Rose Tramore, standing before the fire and looking into it, faced the idea that her grandmother's door would now, under all circumstances, be closed to her. She lost no time, however, in brooding over this anomaly; it only added energy to her determination to act. All she could do to-night was to go to bed, for she felt utterly weary. She had been living, in imagination, in a prospective struggle, and it had left her as exhausted as a real fight. Moreover, this was the culmination of a crisis, of weeks of suspense, of a long, hard strain. Her father had been laid in his grave 5 days before, and that morning his will had been read. In the afternoon she had got Edith off to St. Leonard's with their Aunt Julia, and then she had had a wretched talk with Eric. Lastly, she made up her mind to act in opposition to the formidable will, to a clause which embodied, if not exactly a provision, a recommendation singularly emphatic. She went to bed and slept the sleep of the just. "Oh, my dear, how charming! I must take another house." It was in these words that her mother responded to the announcement Rose had just formally made, and with which she had vaguely expected to produce a certain dignity of effect. In the way of emotion there was apparently no effect at all, and the girl was wise enough to know that this was not simply on account of the general line of non-allusion taken by the extremely pretty woman before her, who looked like her elder sister. Mrs. Tramore had never manifested to her daughter the slightest consciousness that her position was peculiar, but the recollection of something more than that fine policy was required to explain such a failure, to appreciate Rose's sacrifice. It was simply a fresh reminder that she had never appreciated anything, that she was nothing but a tinted and stippled surface. Her situation was peculiar indeed. She had been the heroine of a scandal which had grown dim only because, in the eyes of the London world, it paled in the lurid light of the contemporaneous. That attention had been fixed on it for several days, 15 years before. There had been a high relish of the vivid evidence as to his wife's misconduct, with which, in the divorce court, Charles Tramore had judged well to regale a cynical public. The case was pronounced awfully bad, and he obtained his decree. The folly of the wife had been inconceivable, in spite of other examples. She had quitted her children, she had followed the other fellow abroad. The other fellow hadn't married her, not having had time. He had lost his life in the Mediterranean by the capsizing of a boat before the prohibitory term had expired. Mrs. Tramore had striven to extract from this accident something of the austerity of widowhood, but her mourning only made her deviation more public. She was a widow whose husband was awkwardly alive. She had not prowled about the Continent on the classic lines. She had come back to London to take her chance. But London would give her no chance, would have nothing to say to her, as many persons had remarked. You could never tell how London would behave. It would not receive Mrs. Tramore.